Hi, and welcome to Your Truth Explored, the podcast where we unpack your truths to bring clarity, understanding, and insight into what lies ahead. My name is Rodney Reinders. Our guest today is Professor Gary Martin, a former academic turned social trends and workplace specialist. Gary is a board director, keynote speaker, and newspaper columnist, and currently serves as the CEO of Australian Institute of Management in Western Australia. Through his work, whether it's leading organizations, writing his Workplace Matters column, or contributing to conversations across business and education, Gary has built a reputation for challenging how we think about work, leadership, and the environments we create for people to thrive. What stood out for me was this. Professor Gary didn't just study workplaces. He invites us to question them, to look at what is shaping behavior, what is driving culture, and what needs to shift if we want better outcomes for people and organizations. Today, we explore human leadership in complex workplaces, what sits beneath our decisions, how we listen, and why calm, grounded leadership may be more powerful than we realize. Right, welcome. It's a real privilege to have Professor Gary Martin with us today. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Rodney.
I've been looking forward to our chat for some time now, and I really appreciate you making the time. And the reason why I've been looking forward to it is because it's seldom that we get to have a conversation with somebody with such a breadth of experience as you do in your field. When you look back on that experience of yours in the workplace, what is that thing that sparks your interest about organizations and how one thrives in that?
I think when I look across workplaces, I mean, just take a step back. I've been privileged in that in the role that I have here in Western Australia, I have lots and lots of opportunities to hear from people about their working lives and what happens in their workplaces. And of course, that comes with it the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And so when I hear different stories, or people relay different stories, sometimes I'm amazed. And they're amazingly good stories in terms of what leaders and managers have actually done to support their staff. Sometimes they're distressing stories about, again, because of what leaders, managers, supervisors have done in the workplace. And sometimes, I'm also pleasantly surprised with the approach that people have actually taken to support staff in their organisations to improve an organisation working life, and then, of course, to improve the outcomes that organisation has as well. So, I mean, I feel like while you talk about my experience is the sum of many, many other people's experiences. And I'm in quite a privileged position to hear so many different stories. Normally, if you work in an organization, you might hear what other people in your organization think, but I get to think about things across workplaces, which is just amazing.
Which is one of those things that make you unique and why I was quite keen to chat. So when you look back at sort of leadership, and I want to caveat leadership because we say leadership and then we put that on the manager, or we sort of cast that onto somebody else. But leadership effectively sort of starts with us, me and myself. And if I'm in a good space, then I lead from a good space. But if you cast your mind back 10 years, 20 years, is there a theme or shift in the leadership approach that stands out for you?
Yeah, look, I think we've seen in workplaces leaders recognize that trust is a really important matter in workplaces. And I think over a period of time, we're starting to trust team members, people that work with us, a lot more than we used to. It used to be more, I'm going to catch you out type of model if you're not doing the right thing. Now we trust people to do the right thing. And it's a much more efficient way of operating for leaders and managers because if you can imagine trying to monitor the everyday movements of 10 staff, 20 staff, 30 staff, it's draining on a leader for a start. and it highlights a lack of trust, and people don't trust people that don't trust them. So
That's right.
it's very, very complicated. But
Yeah.
I do think that we've got to the point where modern leaders trust people more than, say, they did 10 or 15 years ago. Part of it is during the COVID pandemic, which, kind of try and avoid going back over because I hear people talk about it a lot. But part of it is, and when people were working from home, we had to trust them.
Yeah.
That's not to suggest there's no mistrust.
Yeah.
In the workplace, because there's still a lot of that. But in answer to your question, what have I seen change? It's more about the trust. We trust people to get on and do the job more than we've ever done before, or most leaders do that.
Yeah. And so if you had to say, okay, and that's a wonderful progression, what is the concern? Is there an inherent concern that you see again across a trend?
I think if we hadn't got to that point where we started to trust people more, leadership ends up being ineffective because leaders should be paving the way, moving things forward, not going back and checking what people have done all the time, or trying to micromanage or to second guess moves or to discover errors and so on. So I think in a sense the trend of trust, even though if you read some media reports, say the public has less trust in organisations than they ever had. I think within an organisation, it's a different matter that people are trusting others around them more than they've done so before. That's the trend. I can only see that increasing as we become more flexible about how we work in every workplace. Every workplace now is about flexibility. You can't have flexibility in a workplace without trust.
Trust. And that ties quite nicely into one of the preceding episodes was around the issue of core beliefs.
Mm,
And I think trust is probably it sits equally as well within that language of do I trust myself
mm,
as well as do I trust the environment I'm in, the companies I support, the work I
absolutely.
work for. If I pose the question, we have these underlying beliefs that they drive us.
Mm.
From your experience, to what extent do these underlying beliefs drive leaders in today's day and age?
Well, it's an interesting one because the first point is trying to work out what your beliefs are.
Oh,
And I think that once you've decided through your experience, how you've seen how your interactions with others end up or how they go, you'll decide what you believe in and what belief works for you or not. But I think the challenge is much bigger than that. It is working out what they are. We unfortunately in many workplaces don't take the time to reflect
yeah.
on our interactions with others, on our plans and all those sorts of things. We rarely do that,
Yeah.
and even though we've been talking about that for years, that we need to reflect to be a leader, think about a situation, trying to hold it up under scrutiny, and then trying to work out the next steps, how to enhance your leadership rather than to go backwards. We talk about it, it sounds pretty easy, but most leaders still don't spend much time reflecting on what they've done and how they've impacted others
Yeah.
around them. So I think the only way that you actually come to grips with a belief system and you work out what you believe in and how you should conduct yourself is through thorough reflection, turning situations over and over and over in your head to try and make some sense of what's actually happened. And if we did that a lot more, the country's leadership would be in a far better shape than it is currently.
And so, is there scope then for, and I'm going to steal Dr. Tim's statement here, for a train track, for a system? Because, like you say, for a long time we've been talking about this, the value of reflection, but we're still talking about it.
Mm.
Seldom is it deployed. Is that because of a lack of framework, or what do you think is the hurdle that prevents that from being deployed?
Well, I think that there's an interesting thing is that the more senior you get, you tend to decide that others around you um, could have some, a coach or go off and do a course. But the more senior leaders tend to get there's a gradual withdrawal, if you like, from development opportunities where if you think about it, if you're a CEO or in the C-suite, your impact is going to be much. It's going to be felt more widely and perhaps more intensely. And so that's exactly where you need to be undertaking development. But
The
of course,
reflection.
uh, senior leaders sometimes think that development opportunities for others because they've had lots and lots of experience. If I'm a CEO with 20 years, I might think, well, I know it all, and I don't need any ongoing development or a train track, some sort of progression to enhance my performance. But the
Yeah.
reality is, 1 year, even if a leader says 20 years experience, if it's 20 years of experience doing the same thing without changing or developing, then it's the same as 1 year's experience.
Yeah.
So this is why, we do need to have plans for everyone within an organization to have ongoing developmental goals, if you like, and some strategies to support them, rather than just to say when you're in a C-suite position or a senior position, the development opportunities for others.
So interesting. So you would be the third recording or guest I've spoken to where, from different aspects of the industry, this situation where leaderships have I started as an accountant. I was a really good accountant. Then I became the boss of 10 accountants, and now I'm the CEO of the accounting firm. And I'm a great accountant, but I haven't invested specifically or with the intent of developing my leadership skills. I'm a great accountant. I've got a great skill set, but my leadership skills has never really been invested. And as you just mentioned, I'm moving to the C-suite, and then I enable the people below me, but seldom pursue that. I guess my question then is, if that's repeated and I'm hearing it in different industries, then what's the hurdle? Because intellectually, we must be aware that that's a bad idea. So, what's the hurdle that it's not being addressed?
Well, I think it's starting to be addressed. What the model that you said about I'm an accountant and suddenly I become a leader of accountants. I'm a really good salesperson, then I become a manager of sales, a group of salespeople. I'm a good teacher in the classroom, and then I become a principal. These are the same things we do over and over and over and over and over again. Is we take people that are talented in their job, we then put them into a leadership role, and typically we don't provide them with support. I mean, that's not always the case. Some people
Yeah.
do. So I think we're starting to see that model break down, and we are seeing that people are trying to support that salesperson to become a sales manager. So we are seeing some of those sorts of things happening, but there are still a lot of people that would subscribe to the belief that if you're a good salesperson, you'll be a good sales manager,
Yeah.
and I think that's where work potentially is a recipe for disaster. Some people will just slot into those roles and carry on and know what to do, and others will fail miserably. Their confidence will be shaken, and they won't want to continue on in these sorts of roles
Yeah.
because it's too hard. And leadership should really be a joy. That doesn't mean that it's never difficult, but it should be a joy. It should be a job that you look forward to, because if you don't look forward to a leadership role, then the impact is probably not going to be optimal.
Yeah, that's right. And I can also just reflect then on one of the other episodes where we spoke about the issue of listening,
Mm.
which also seems to be a subject matter that comes up quite frequently, and how that ability as a leader and as an individual to be able to listen and hear with by being inquisitive and leaning in, that's where the gold sits, where the truth sits of relationships. I wonder, from your perspective, do you feel leaders are becoming better at listening?
I think, uh, yeah, I think leaders are aware of the importance of listening more than ever. but I'm not sure that we've necessarily got there yet. I think everything we've described so far, Rodney, is a work in progress where we were here and now we've moved up a little bit, but we've still got a lot more of work to do. I think the barrier to listening is that people don't like. I think sometimes leaders feel like when they're not talking, they're not doing their job, whereas they don't like it where there's silence. And silence, is uncomfortable, but it really means if you promote a little bit of silence just in a meeting, then you might have an opportunity to listen to what someone has to say, because then they might pipe up and say something. So I think it's being uncomfortable with silence if it's not their own voice. And people take time to formulate their thoughts, so they don't necessarily give you their reactions to things straight away. So you need to be able to foster a little bit of silence in conversations, become a little bit more comfortable with some silence. But I think for all the reasons that support listening, I mean, if we just take emotional intelligence, for example, you're not going to be able to be an emotionally intelligent leader unless you have the capacity to listen and try and understand what people have to say. And that sometimes involves a bit of science.
Can I even extend the emotional um, skill set develops when I can be comfortable with the uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think this is the case. We've got a problem in workplaces at the moment where people think of psychological safety as being uh, a kind of environment where you don't ever feel uncomfortable. Yet psychological safety is all about
It's not uncomfortable. It's
being
uncomfortable.
comfortable to have uncomfortable
That's right.
uh, discussions and safety, and to listen and to share. So, but not feeling uncomfortable about that. It's actually about comfortable in uncomfortable discussions. But people kind of steer away from that. So I think the more we can characterize uncomfortable discussions as a good thing, people become more comfortable with them.
Yes. And that's so well said. And if you're listening and you go, I'm that guy that's uncomfortable in those awkward silent moments, that's a great piece of advice to go. We're not looking for an environment where you don't feel uncomfortable. We're looking for an environment where even in the uncomfortable, you feel confident.
Yeah, because trust comes back there. If you trust people around you, it works two ways. You're going to be far more open to having uncomfortable discussions, feeling uncomfortable about them if you trust those that you work with.
Yes, very definite theme, that trust and the emotional intelligence that joins together there. We also spoke about calm in leadership. There's a place to find
Mm.
calm, and that leans very much into that emotional intelligence. Uh, and I guess also in many ways it leads into that being comfortable with the uncomfortable as you grow into
Sure.
your leadership space. Is there enough awareness around that requirement as a leader in the modern day leader?
Look, I think some leaders are conscious of what's called might be called secondhand stress. So if you're a very stressed leader and you panic yourself and you show a lot of signs of being anxious or stressed about situations, if you don't feel confident, if you don't show confidence and so on, you can actually pass that on to others. So that's
Right.
called secondhand stress. So for leaders is anxious and very stressed, then there's a good chance that those in a team are actually going to be the same. Now, everybody is a leader within a team in a sense, because we talked about a little bit about self-leadership
Yeah.
before. So even if there's a team member who's leading a particular project, if they're anxious about something, they can easily that stress can and anxiety could spread very quickly within a team. So I think calmness is actually about trying for a leader is to really to design a situation for calmness. You need to design calmness to stop it spreading to everyone else. And there's a number of ways that leaders need to design a calm environment for themselves, but for others as well.
We're back at the train tracks. I design a calm system, as should I design a system where I reflect. And if I may, I just want to reflect myself on a story with a client who was a very anxious person, and but was also in extreme sports. And I
Mm-hmm.
found it fascinating because they were visiting me for anxiety. And when I asked them to explain their anxiety, the physicality of the anxiety, they said, "Oh, my heart pounds. I get this sort of deep breathing, my sweaty palms, and get a knot in my tummy." And I noted all that down. And then later on in the conversation, we spoke about the extreme sports. And I said, "Oh, so tell me about the physicality when you're enjoying it." No, I get a
Mm-hmm.
knot in my tummy, my heart pounds, I get focused breathing, my sweaty palms. I said, "But that's literally the same words you use for stress."
Mm-hmm.
And they went, "Oh." And I said, "What if I give you the choice? The next time you call it stress, you choose to call it extreme sport. Does that change?" And it changed their whole world because the physicality
Mm-hmm.
was exactly the same. The only difference was they now had a choice between what label they stuck on it.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that was their process from there onwards. So if you're listening and you're dealing with stress, it's my pet subject. Change the label, stick a different label on it.
Well, I think too, Rodney, that quite often what leaders do is they fail to just to managing their calmness. They don't control the input. Sometimes you have 20 different things that are coming at you, and you've actually got to prioritize what you're going to take in at that particular point in time. It's not to suggest that other things aren't important, but you can only manage certain things
That's right.
at one time. I mean, I had a just a little story. I had a digital watch, and I took it off in the end because I used to find that I had a phone, I had a digital watch, I had my laptop, I had my uh, mainframe computer, I had all these different things that were bombarding me with messages, notifications, and so on. And I know you can turn it off, you can turn a watch off, the notifications off. But
Yeah.
when I first put it on, I thought, well, the whole purpose of having it is for notifications on,
Yeah.
because then it's close to you. But then I thought, no, I'm taking it off because it used to annoy me that no matter wherever I went, if my phone was in another room, the watch was still there and I would still get pinged. There was no escaping stuff.
Escape.
And I found that just taking my watch off, my digital watch off, made me a lot calmer, because I was constantly trying to react to things
Yeah.
and it wasn't good for me. So I kind of now try and control the inputs that I have a little bit,
Yeah.
because these days there's so many different ways that people can connect with you or you can receive information, but none of it's effective unless you prioritize.
That's right. And also, it's a wonderful example of this thing we've been talking about. So you've reflected. I got to watch. I wanted communication. Then you reflect on the degree to which it impacts you, and you go, "Yeah, it would seem like a good idea at the time. I don't think it is." And then you deploy the system which goes, "I'm now removing the watch. I've got enough noises from the." And so that's really just a walkthrough of what we're talking about today. Is that not true?
Yeah, look, it is. It's stopping for a moment to actually interrogate. I'll use the word interrogate your own experiences. What is making me anxious? What is making me lose my cool? What is making me lose my calmness? My watch, because I feel like I'm never going to escape
Yeah,
from these sorts of things, and we all need to escape. And I think the other thing is that if we can make our reflection to be something that is, down the track, but it can actually be in action as well. So
that's
you have
right.
a discussion with someone, your automatic response there might be a very negative reaction. It could be a hostile or aggressive reaction. If you take the time and say, I'm going to pause and I'm going to reflect on this in the moment, you're probably going to get a better outcome as
That's right.
if compared to if you just reacted to something straight away.
That's
That
right.
again is another way to remain calm, is to pause in the middle of and something that's unfolding and then respond.
That's
Basically,
right.
make sure you come across as a lot calmer. Sometimes you're still in turmoil internally, but
Internally.
I find that just pausing before reacting, no matter whether it's your son, your daughter, your partner, your workmate, whoever, your
Yeah.
boss.
And there's actually a lot of research to support that. So and we're talking microseconds. Just
That's right.
I'm just gonna take a deep breath here is enough for your that psychological safety to kick in. Go, okay, so when Rodney takes a deep breath, he's telling his system, this is okay.
Mm.
Yes, there's something that needs to be dealt with, but I'm fine. I've got the skills, I've got the wherewithal, and I'll be fine.
And unfortunately, people won't pause, even if it is for a few seconds or microseconds, if they're not comfortable with a bit of silence as well. So it comes
This
back
is
to what I
true.
said before.
Yeah.
If someone's told you about a very difficult situation, then you need to take a little bit of time to reflect on it before response. And it might be just a few seconds, but people want an instant reaction. You
Yeah.
want an instant to give an instant reaction. So you just got to tell yourself, pause a little bit before reacting.
And I would love to see the researchers as you go higher up in the leadership thing, if that need to be like I'm the guy that can solve the problem, so the need to react or respond quicker is enhanced because of my position within
Yeah,
my.
you'll find that leaders that do pause are called. People often say, oh, he's a very considered leader
Yeah,
because he stops or she stops
yeah,
and considers
yes,
their actions before responding.
that's right. Again, I'm just reflecting on another conversation I had on the episode previously, and they were talking about sports people that take space, time off for their mental health and how they celebrate it. But if I think I must take some time off, I'm like, I'm weak.
Mm.
It's almost like the data doesn't sort of correlate between the two
No,
entities.
if I go to back when you asked me about the difference in say past 10 years in leadership, I think the other one I was torn between which one to say. I mentioned trust, but the other one is that um, more leaders are taking an interest in their own health, that is physical health and mental health. And it's all about self-care. The old model of you put your team members before you, or the people that you're leading before you, is starting to disintegrate because people recognize that if you're not fit, both mentally and physically, you're not going to be able to take care of others. So you put yourself first so that you can help others, just like you would on an aeroplane. If the oxygen masks jumped out of the ceiling, you would help yourself to the mask before you help others. It's the same with
Yeah.
leadership.
Is it the story that's wrong there? Because we've got the story that we sold ourselves is that we've got to put others first, and that could be
That's
from
right.
childhood. You got to respect. You got to put others first. But like the mask in the airplane, I'm of no value to a mate next to me if I haven't got my mask on.
Well, that's right. If you're so worn out because you haven't taken a holiday for 4 weeks, and people go and see you and you're grumpy, you're not responsive, you don't listen, they go away with a bad vibe about the meeting that they had with you, then, really, who are you helping? No one. You're not helping yourself and you're not helping someone around you. So you've always got to put your health first, particularly when it comes to mental health. You've got to stop and think about um, being as healthy in mind as possible as you can, so that then you can help others as
Yeah,
well.
that's
And
right.
again, it comes down to everything we've talked about. If you're a stressful type person, you sound like you're rattled all the time, that you're not managing. Again, it passes on to other people that are around you. So everything we're talking about is in some way linked,
Yeah,
either directly or indirectly. But that was the other one I was going to talk about:
yeah,
self-care And being calm, to go back to that, has something to do with the care that you take of yourself.
And I wonder if I could add on to that story, Gary, just when we listen to these kind of podcasts and these conversations, we can get almost impressed about the negative stories. But if you're in a group where it's a joyous group, all of a sudden everybody's joyous.
That's
It
right.
works as well in the positive as it does in the negative. So it's not that you've got to beat the negative, you just got to introduce the positive, and the effects are exactly the same. They roll on in the same way.
Absolutely.
Now, Gary, if you look ahead, we've looked back now. If we look ahead, what do you think? What do you see for leadership into the future?
Yeah, I think challenging times, but then I think, well, when hasn't it been a
Yeah,
challenging
yeah,
time? But
that's right.
I think there are just new challenges emerging. One of the things that I see as challenging leaders now, and there's an enormous variation in understanding, is that of artificial intelligence and how we are going to deploy artificial intelligence in workplaces. Leaders need to think about how they're using artificial intelligence now and into the future, and how it's going to impact on people as well, because there is an impact on people. There's an impact on particular jobs, but then that might mean, something as simple as an admin job. Does it actually improve your efficiency, your effectiveness? Probably does, but it also impacts on people like artists, for example,
Yeah,
who could spend years creating a piece that artificial intelligence could create in 10 seconds or
yeah,
2 minutes, basically. And so I think we've got. I mean, the quality might be not the same, but I think we've got all those issues that are actually going to challenge us in the future, and we're only just starting to think about what that actually means.
yeah,
Does it mean less in the workplace, less staff? Probably does, but it probably means also more people in different jobs as well.
that's
So
right.
all of these things are the things that are going to if you like, challenge leaders as we move through just the next year. Because what we've seen so far with artificial intelligence is that it's actually moving at a rapid speed. What we first saw when we first had access, everyday people had access to artificial intelligence, was, this is a bit rough. You can see it's not quite right. And now it's becoming more and more sophisticated. People are using it to do more and more jobs in the workplace and in
Yeah,
life more broadly.
yeah, that's right. And so, you're a leader and you're looking into this turmoil water in front of us. Is there a belief that you believe leaders should leave behind as they enter into this new era?
Yeah, look, I think every leader at all points should be thinking about legacy. And that is, what do you want to be known for in the workplace? Where you've been, your organization, what are you known for? You're the person that helped to, for example, change the culture in an organization, that opened 10 new branches. What do you want to be known for? And what you want to be known for does come down to what you believe in, right?
Yeah,
And my belief would be that if you do the right thing by the people you work with, and you mentor, you develop those people, then everything else will follow. So my belief is in the people. I believe in building people to actually achieve outcomes for an organization, for a business, whatever those are, depending on obviously the business. But I would have to balance all of that against um, that issue of self-care that we actually talked about. Because
yeah,
when we go back to that, we want a legacy that relates to our profession. We want people to be able to say, yes, he did that, she did that, they did that. And that was a great result. But at the same time, as you get older, you're also conscious that uh, on your deathbed, no one says to you, or you rarely will say to someone that's with you, I wish I'd spent more time at work. And
yeah,
so that's why you have to balance these things with, what did you wish? You have to balance your working life with everything outside of working life. What did you wish you did more of?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be, quite often, it's not going to be work. It might be a part of it that you're pleased that you made a contribution, but it's going to be, I wanted to spend more time with my family, with my friends, doing things that I really enjoy doing. And that's why, again, it's so important that leadership's a joy, because who wants to spend a life,
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years, 50-year career leading others, and then at the end of it all, not experiencing the joy? There's other things for you if you don't find leadership a joy.
Yeah. And again, that ties back into this theme of reflection. You know, we started reflection, and even legacy requires reflection.
Mm,
So we've seen that sort of trend through the whole journey. And yeah, I guess if that would be my takeaway from today is this
mm,
reflecting, and not the word reflection, but the process of reflection. So that's a great idea. And here are my 3 steps that I'm going to do to reflect
mm.
and deploy. Now, Gary, what services does somebody listens to your conversation and goes, geez, I'd like to tap into some of your wisdom. What services are you offering the public at large?
The organisation, AIMWA, we offer training for workplace capability, including leadership and management development, coaching. We run conferences to get people up to date with trends in their area. We also run senior management training. So every year we bring Harvard professors to Perth in Western Australia to run our senior executive forum. So we really have a real mixture of activities designed overall not only just to inspire better workplaces, but to build better communities. We're a not-for-profit organisation, so everything that we achieve through providing services to the community, we inject back into the community, usually through charities and other organisations that might not be able to fund their own development opportunities
Yeah.
because of tight budgets. So they're the sorts of things that we do. I did think that what I should say to you too, Rodney, is that in all of the stuff about reflection, self-care, trust, and so on, I think one of the thoughts I haven't made yet that I would is that you know we set ourselves up for fail when we talk about things like work-life balance. And it's not possible to have a life in a leadership role that has 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, and 8 hours of everything else. So I think that the sooner that leaders can come to grips with the idea that work-life balance is a nonsense type of concept, and replace it with the idea of work-life flow, which is kind of like you flow more into your life at different stages and more into your work at different stages, depending on what the circumstances are, the better off we will be. Because at the moment, I think we set up people for failure when we talk about work-life balance, because in a leadership role, it's almost impossible to get that balance on a day-to-day type basis, and we need
Yeah.
to be present sometimes more in our working lives and present more in our um, uh, personal lives at different stages. And everything we've talked about today, I think, should actually be balanced around thinking about where we spend our time and why, and
Yeah.
that come down to our beliefs again.
Now, I might still work life flow if that's okay with you.
Well, that's much better than balance, because we never
Yeah.
get balance.
And the reason I had a client not so long ago, and it was a sweet, sweet person, lady, and she was talking to me because she had to pick up her kid at school, and she had this internal dialogue that was beating her about how can you pick up your kid when you should be at work.
Mm, mm,
That we came to that. I didn't use that language, but I certainly
mm,
will in the future. The work life flow, and the outcome of the conversation was, so who's the author of this person that said you can't pick up your kid?
mm,
And she couldn't put a name to the person. It was just an intellectual. I'm sure somebody's judging me, but it turns out I can't name anybody. So
mm.
I guess I can decide. But work-life flow would have been an easy way to explain that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think she could flow into her work at night time
That's
when she
right.
was safely home with her children if she wanted to. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I will also say, so PMI, I've been fortunate to talk at some of their career clubs, I think they call it, and they've got book clubs. They've got a number of programs, and they're very warm. I know the Queensland group probably better than the WA group, but a wealth of resources that you access through the websites.
absolutely. Yeah.
So well worth looking. Professor Gary, I really wanted to thank you for your time. I've been looking forward to our chat, as I said at the start, and so I appreciate that you fitted us in. And thank you for coming.
Thanks, Rodney.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Your Truth Explored. If today's episode resonated with you, please take a moment to follow the podcast and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps these messages reach the people who need them most. If you'd like to explore your own truths more deeply, you're welcome to connect with me at yourtruthservices.com.au about coaching or counseling bookings. Also available on that website is our other resources such as music, books, and videos. Until next time, take care and stay connected to your truth.